There's just a little bit of spring in your step, just feel a little bit, I don't know. It's like something new is just around the corner.
No, and football's gonna be here right around the corner. It's gonna blaze by. Once it starts get going, once the train gets on the tracks, it's right downhill, and we'll be to the first preseason game, the second, the third, then we'll be to the start of the NFL regular season. Go through the couple cutdowns.
Just give me every milestone.
Away you go. I mean, it's right around the corner.
I know. What did you say? Yeah, well, the NFL draft. I mean, the milestone.
Lots of ways away, Pete.
Well, let's not rush through the season yet because we got major optimism for both of these teams. And I feel like there is not
Dynamite dropping, Hoff.
Thanks. Is that Paulie Rosen? There isn't a quarterback in the NFL who is facing the type of pressure that Daniel Jones is facing. I can't say the most, but you can make that argument. Nobody is facing the type of pressure that Daniel Jones is facing in the entire league. You've got a team that has put all of their faith into a quarterback that so far has not given you the kind of results that would, quite frankly, warrant this kind of faith. But here we are. Giants pushing their chips to the middle of the table with a quarterback that threw 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions last year, right? They are pushing their chips to the middle of the table by signing $200 million in free agents, headlined by Kenny Golladay as a number one wide receiver to the tune of 4 years and $72 million. They have given Daniel Jones now all the tools, Moose. You have a wide receiver core that is more than capable. I mean, I would say a very good wide receiver core, especially now with Golladay here. You have a healthy, we believe, Saquon Barkley will be a part of this team in a meaningful way. Whether it's week one or not, we can get into. But the fact that he will be back, you have, a team that is so confident in their offensive line that they decided not to add in free agency and not to add in the draft. They feel like this unit can take one big giant leap together. And then you look at the quarterback and you think he's got all the physical tools. He's got the arm. He's got the ability to run, right? He's big. And really, the difference for Jones is just going to be his decision-making. In year 3, when the game speeds up, is he going to be able to meet the moment? And I'll be honest with you, I think he will. I think things are setting up really well here for Daniel Jones. I mean, he was maligned when the Giants took him in the draft with the 6th overall pick. It was like the headline, and let's be honest, a lot of ways the laughing stock of that draft. You had Baker Mayfield coming out questioning whether Daniel Jones should have been a top 10 pick. I mean, these are his own peers. And then he eventually had to walk that back.
Put the value on winning is what Mayfield did, right? Daniel Jones never won at Duke, right? There's value in winning quarterbacks, and why are you drafting a non-winner with the 6th overall pick?
Yeah, but everyone's college experience is so different, And I feel like that's what, talent evaluators are paid to do, which is...
forgetting Patrick Mahomes won a national championship?
You're really going out to try to see, where is the potential and can this guy play on the next level? And so far, the results for Jones have not been there. I feel optimistic for him, though, in year 3. I think the Giants do have the right head coach in Joe Judge. I do think that having, this team together for a second year, things have been loosened up because you don't have the tight restrictions that COVID put on this team last year. I think the Giants' upgrades were ones that were much needed. John Mara won't tell you it's a playoff mandate, but it essentially is when you're spending that kind of money. And I'm expecting a big year.
Yeah, the Giants want to play relevant football, and so am I. I mean, I know that there's criticism of Jones, and rightfully so. And know people laugh at him about tripping up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jones also, has the penchant for having the erroneous throw, the bad turnover, bad fumble, pocket presence. Game not slowing down, everything that we've heard about Daniel Jones. There's a lot to like about him, about his athleticism, a guy his size, mentality, very Eli-like, being able to handle everything that New York City and the pressure that comes his way. But, yeah, I mean, the Giants, he has a ton of pressure on him this year. The question is, as you mentioned, how is he going to respond? You think he'll respond well? I think he'll respond well. I think there are a lot of Giant fans that are, kind of skeptical as far as whether or not he will.
Because you haven't seen it yet.
And I think you have every right to be questionable. Question whether or not you're going to see it from Daniel Jones. The Giants, I'll tell you this, the Giant confidence in Daniel Jones is unquestioned. So as an organization, there is, little to no debate going into year 3, and there's none about whether or not Daniel Jones is the guy. Now he's got to show it, right? The confidence that the Giants have in him, and it's not just Gettleman who drafted him and others within the organization. It's really top down. They really believe that Jones is their franchise quarterback. John Mara talked about a couple, going into last year, I believe it was, that, Jones is capable of winning a Super Bowl here with the Giants. So that's unquestioned. So there's, those that, have, say, well, where's the rope, the leash? Well, no. This is Daniel Jones's team. There's the complete confidence that he is the guy, Maggie. Now he's got to go out there. There's no more excuses for Daniel Jones. The excuses are out there for him personally, for the Giants as an organization. This is a huge year. We look at, whether it be Joe Judge year 2, Jason Garrett year 2. You mentioned the amount of money that they have spent in the offseason for Dave Gettleman and company, the talent around him, the 35 coaches, I say that sarcastically, that they have on that staff for Joe Judge. I think it's the largest coaching staff in the
it's half
National
of college football
League.
and most of the NFL.
It's amazing what they have. Yes, everyone's all in on this year, and there's a big, last year going into the year, the Giants, I told you, thought that they were a year away. Well, that year is now. So there were positive signs last year for Joe Judge as a coach, negatives with the Barkley injury, negatives now about when Barkley, if and when he'll return. But this is not a matter of Saquon Barkley being the guy that gets this offense going. It's got to be Daniel Jones, and the Giants believe that they are not only going to just be a relevant team, they're going to be a playoff contender. They're going to play relevant football in the latter stages of this season and get themselves to the playoffs. Just by their actions, Maggie, they've shown you that they're all in on this season. Yeah, but the biggest key is we can go back and forth about Barkley and his impact and the nauseating conversation about whether or not you should have drafted a running back with the second overall pick. Listen, he's here, and we'll see when the Giants and when he's 100% healthy and he returns to this team. If you deal with the here and now, no one's debating about the talent of Saquon Barkley, but he is not the guy that's going to lead this team. It comes down to the quarterback. And everything that you mentioned about Jones is true. There's a lot to like about him, but there's been a lot to like about other quarterbacks in the NFL, but ultimately they failed. When you looked at their physical gifts, when you said, oh my God, look, he can throw the ball wherever he wants to throw it. Look at how big he is. Look at how, he's got the athleticism. He's got the size. He's got the arm strength. Well, sometimes those guys don't work out. Sometimes, for whatever reason, the game does not slow down for them, and they don't end up being a franchise quarterback. So Daniel Jones needs to show that he is a franchise quarterback. Then you can get into, the level of franchise quarterback, right? He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not, he's never going to be Tom Brady. He's never going to be Drew Brees. I don't think he's that caliber. You're looking at, first ballot all-time great quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean that Daniel Jones can't be this organization's franchise quarterback, a winning quarterback, a playoff quarterback, and a Super Bowl contending quarterback. All of those things can be true if he's not this immortal quarterback, which I don't think Daniel Jones will be. But that's not a knock on what he is. I still think he's capable of being the guy here for this team.
I just wonder what it's going to look like for this team, right? You're talking about an offense. If you want to start from last year kind of being like zero in the bottom here for the Giants, where they were 31st in points per game. They were 31st in yards per game. They were 29th in the league in third down conversions, 31st in red zone, 31st in touchdowns per game. They're averaging barely 2 touchdowns a game. It's just totally unacceptable. And you can say and point to all different types of excuses that the Giants would have. The one thing the Giants had going for them last year, despite all of the bad numbers that I just read for you, is that it looked different. It did look different. There was, it was competitive. They were actually in games, coming down to the final plays and things like that. You have to believe that kind of experience, hopefully, is going to, carry over for Daniel Jones and something that he can really build on. Because, I think last year, rightfully so, I think it was okay to give him a bit of a pass. Would you expect him? You wanted him to take a step forward. There really were a lot of factors working against him. Let's just be realistic about it and not just be totally blind fans. There were a lot of factors working against him, and he didn't really rise to the occasion. But he was playing in meaningful games where, game on the line. Now, unfortunately, it didn't come through in a lot of those games, but that's the sort of step that you want to see him take this year, winning you games. Again, franchise quarterback, there's a lot of different definitions of that. Is Daniel Jones going to be able to win you games? And quite frankly, this is a schedule that has a lot of winnable games on it.
No, it does. And we've gone through the schedule, Maggie, and I don't See, it's interesting. I can't give Jones a pass for last year. Like, I can understand why those that look at him, we had Mike Lombardi on a number of times that's not a huge fan of Daniel Jones. Then there's a lot of others that look at Daniel Jones play the quarterback spot and they're going to tell you ultimately they think he's going to fail, right? The game doesn't slow down, terrible pocket presence, doesn't take care of the football, all of those things. So that's fair. He's going to have to prove those naysayers wrong. I'm not going to give him a pass. I think there's a reason to be concerned about Jones, but I also think you have to. I think you have to look at it with the look at it in the same spectrum that you looked at it after his rookie year, when everybody was running around trying to buy a Danny Dimes T-shirt, and everyone's saying that's our quarterback. Now it looked distinctly different than obviously Eli Manning. You know, his athleticism, what he could do, making the throws, and he clearly flashed his rookie year more so than he flashed year number 2. There was great optimism about Daniel Jones, and a lot of that optimism was snuffed out last year about Jones. I think there's got to be a balance when you look at him as a player, though, because I think the ability is there. I think there are things that are concerning about Daniel Jones when you watch him play. And we got into the mindset, you and I, how many times last year, Maggie, when we were going through that regular season and we were the king and queen of the moral victory for the Giants. Well, it's no longer about moral victories. It's no longer about playing well. It's no longer about being a competitive game. It's no longer about the tight, close losses. Some of those games that you lost last year, tight and close, well, you've got to win those games this year. And Daniel Jones has got to start to be a guy that makes the winning play when he needs to make the winning play, because that is, we talk, how many times we talk about the quarterback being the most important position in the National Football League. You can win in a year working around the quarterback. If I've got an all-time great defense, if I've got an unbelievable ground game, and my quarterback is going to be a quote-unquote game manager. Well, I'm not drafting a game manager to be with the 6th overall pick. Right. I'm just not. And even though I love Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator, the Giants are not the Baltimore Ravens, and they're not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're not the mid-'80s Bears. That's not what this Giant defense is going to be, nor are they going to have the ground game with the questions around Saquon Barkley and still some of the questions around the young offensive line, nor are they going to be the best rush offense in the NFL. But what Jones needs to be is we can no longer celebrate when he doesn't turn the football over. Like those conversations.
Or when he throws it out of bounds.
Right. Those conversations have got to come to an end, Maggie. Like, that's got to be it, where we come out of a game on a Monday morning, you and I breaking down Giants, Washington.
Like only two interceptions.
And you say, well, you know what? At least Jones throws for 210. And he throws one touchdown. At least he didn't turn the football over. Right. That's a positive. Like, that can't be the conversation any longer with Daniel Jones. That really can't be. And, I was completely wrong last year about the Giants offense with Jason Garrett. And I thought they would be a top 15 offense. Clearly Barkley going down to the injury did not help the offensive line. The concerns there. Jones didn't take a step forward. The weapons around him. The Giant offense did not. They were terrible last year.
It was bad.
They don't have a hurdle. They don't have a massive hurdle to overcome.
No,
because it's just a little bit better, and they're going to be clearly significantly upgraded as compared to where they were in 2020. But I think all signs. I think if you're a Giant fan, as training camp opens up, we're sitting here on this Tuesday morning, Maggie. I think you got to be really hopeful. You believe in the coach and Judge. You might have concerns about Garrett as an offensive coordinator. There's questions about Saquon Barkley, but I think you're hopeful that Daniel Jones has now got the support around him to watch him flourish. The offensive line, you mentioned it. I think it's a great point. I think it's a point that needs to be hammered home, which is the fact that this is not going to be a COVID training camp, right? So this is going to be a camp where it's going to be more hands-on. They feel like their offensive line staff is much more in tow of what Joe Judge wants as compared to where they were a year ago. And so I think they really believe in the growth of these young offensive linemen year 1 to year 2. As that offensive line comes into play, and now you add Kenny Golladay and the other weapons that this team does have, Maggie, there's really no excuses for Jones this year. He's got to step forward. I think he will. You think he will. And if he does, the Giants are going to have a really good year.
We want to hear from you, 877-337-6666. How are you feeling about the Giants as they open camp? We'll get into the Jets as well, with Zach Wilson and the team still working out some contract details. So no Zach Wilson.
We'll get into
for now.
We'll get into it. Well, what are the Jets doing?
Well, ask yourself about Joe Douglas.
I get it, but what are you doing here? I mean, what are you doing?
Offset language, Moose.
Yes.
Get accustomed to it.
I understand
Get cozy with it.
Not with Trevor Lawrence.
No, or
Lawrence
Justin
is excited
Fields.
why he's a Jacksonville Jaguar. No offset language.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Jets seem to play hardball with that one.